Good morning. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. My name is Marilyn Orr, President of the club, and we are thrilled to have you join us today. This meeting broadcast is available on HCTV, as well as our Rotary of Hudson YouTube channel and Facebook. Our club meets weekly using this digital platform, Zoom. When we meet in person, it's at Laurel Lake Retirement Community for breakfast. We hope to get back to that soon. We meet most Wednesday mornings from 7:15 to 8:30 a.m. So come out to join us for a meeting. We would love to have you as a guest. To learn more about Rotary, our club, and the impact we are having on our local community and the world, please visit our website, rotaryhudson.org. So enjoy this meeting today and help us share the message that Rotary opens doors of opportunity.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson on this beautiful spring day. I'm Ron Strobel, the Sergeant at Arms. Our invocation this morning is by Father Joe Boisel.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, let's pray together. Oh God, you have made us in your image. Look with compassion on the whole human family. Take away the arrogance and hatred which infect our hearts. Break down the walls that separate us. Unite us in bonds of love. And work through our struggle and confusion to accomplish your purpose on earth. That in your good time, all nations and races may serve you in harmony around your throne. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father Joe. And to lead us in the pledge and the four-way test, Kelly Brennan.
Good morning, everyone. Hey, just a little information before we get started. I happened to read a little something about the Pledge of Allegiance and discovered that it was written in the late 1800s. It's somewhat in dispute as to who actually wrote it, but the last time it was changed was in 1954 by President Eisenhower, and the addition of the words "under God" was added. So with that, we will get started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test. These are the things that we think, we say, and we do. Number one, is it the truth? Number two, is it fair to all concerned? Number three, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Number four, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thanks, Ron.
Thank you, Kelly. And now our president, Marilyn Orr.
Thank you, Ron. Good morning and welcome Rotarians and guests. Welcome to our meeting on this beautiful sunny day. I'd like to remind everyone that we have a club board of directors meeting immediately following this meeting. All active members are invited to join us. We're going to open this morning with Jim Ahern, who's going to give us an update on the four-way speech contest. Jim, would you please unmute and tell us what's going on with the program?
Okay, well, we are, to start with, what's the biggest difference is the same thing that's affecting our meetings is we're going to still have the speech contest. Actually, the Western Reserve Academy is having theirs this week, and that's being taken care of by the Clock Tower Club, and they'll have two competitors. And then on the 24th of March at 7 o'clock, Hudson High School is going to have theirs. These will be Zoom competitions. So the reason for this information about it is mainly to gather 5 judges. Marilyn said there were, how many folks volunteered, Marilyn, for the for last week? 5?
Five
So
that I know of, yes.
Yeah, 5 people volunteered for the speech and debate that Hudson High School needed some, and they ended up not needing our help with that. But I do need 5 judges. It'll be 7 o'clock p.m. You get to do it right where you're sitting right now. And I'll get you everything you need in terms of how to judge, what to judge, the scoring sheet. We usually know the winner pretty quickly, but this is going to take probably at least a little bit of time to send me your scoring sheet. We'd figure out the easiest way of doing it. But I still need 5 volunteers. So if anybody wants to raise their hand right now, if not, I will send out a message. Mimi, there's one. Anybody else? Marilyn? John Adams?
Joe Boisel,
Joe Boysel? I see any other? And
Elizabeth.
Tom Tobin. Tom, you sure you want to be being on the board? You sure you want to judge? You can do it. I can't hear you.
I think was Elizabeth interested too. Let Elizabeth do it.
Yes.
Elizabeth, did you want to do it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I did.
Okay.
I did do the speech tournament this past weekend. We
Oh,
were
you did?
judging up until 8:30 at night. They were very late.
Oh, wow. Well, how was it? Were they good?
The kids were very impressive.
That's great.
Although
That's
in
great.
about 15 plus years since I've been in high school, they still do some of the same speeches.
This sounds like some college tests we used to find in the files. Anyway, okay, I've got 5. That's great. I'll come back to people. The actually the competition for the winner with our club will be on Wednesday, April 7th. So that'll be our meeting on that day is the club, and then the competition after that with the winner. So everything else is the same, except we'll be doing it on Zoom. Any questions?
No, I think we're doing.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. We've been doing this a number of years, so we kind of know the drill. But it's always exciting to see new talent, to hear the ideas and how they relate to our 4-way test. The kids do a great job in that regard. Next, we're going to introduce and welcome a new member. So would John Adams please unmute, and Jeff Korf please unmute. It's really exciting to accept a new member with I would say youth on his side and a lot of enthusiasm and family backing. So John, would you please take it away?
Absolutely. Thank you, Marilyn. Jeff, good morning to you. How are you today?
Good morning. Great. Thank you very much for having me and for welcoming me into the group.
Absolutely. We are excited to have you here. And we started this get to know your members interview program as a result of the pandemic. And so, the thinking here is someday we all hope to be in person. And as we're breaking bread together over breakfast and saying our hellos, we'd really like to make our group more intimate and really get to know, hey, who am I sitting next to here? Who are they really, other than just a hello? And so that's the purpose of our chat here for the next 45 minutes. Just joking, 15. And so really it's just, sit back, relax, just want to get to know you. And, probably some other members would be curious about some things about your background. And this way, when we are all in person, somebody might not ask you, hey, who are you? So that's the idea of our visit together this morning. Fair enough?
Yeah, sounds great.
So Jeff, where are you this morning? I see some nice background, looks like some diplomas there. I know one of them is undergrad, you're a Buckeye, and then Ohio State, and then law school. I saw you went off to New York and Syracuse. Is that right?
That is correct. Yep. So this morning I'm talking to everybody from my office in Akron. I work in South Akron at our facility here.
Got it. And how long have you been in Hudson?
5 years exactly. We moved to Hudson on March 1st of 2016.
Got it. And how are you enjoying it?
It's great. We, my wife and I, we've got 3 kids, and we kind of selected Hudson out of a bunch of different communities that we were looking at for a lot of reasons, but it is an absolutely fantastic city to raise a family in, and we've very thoroughly enjoyed our time here. It's kind of like Hudson is a community that isn't like very many communities that exist anymore. And I'm sure if there's a lot of longtime residents, they're probably used to what Hudson is, but it's a unique place because just as an example, we've got 3 kids that we have no second thoughts about just letting them get on their bikes or run out on the sidewalk and go play with friends. And they're gone for 4 hours and we don't think about it. And that, I don't know if everyone on this call fully appreciates that, but that doesn't really exist anymore. There aren't very many communities where you feel safe enough to be able to just send your kids outside and have them play and know that they're going to be with friends and know that if something happens, there's 10 parents that are immediately going to call you and let you know what's going on. And so that was kind of our hope when we moved here. And our hope is, I think, more than been kind of realized by the neighbors and by the community at large. And that was really one of the things that motivated me to join Rotary, to be perfectly honest. My father-in-law is a very long time Rotarian. He's been involved in the group for 30 years. He's in Salem, Ohio, very active participant in their chapter. And we've been in town long enough now where you meet your neighbors and you meet people that you kind of, through random coincidences, kind of end up associating with. But I wanted to, I guess, more fully engage in the community. And so Rotary seemed like a really natural extension of that based on some of the arm twisting that I've gotten from my father-in-law. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's been great. It's been great. We really, really very sincerely enjoy the community.
Now, let me ask, just as I was preparing for this interview, your father-in-law has the same first name and same spelling?
He does.
As you, I mean.
Yes, he does.
That's pretty interesting. That's really interesting.
He's also a Jeff with a G. That's just one of those cosmic coincidences. It was certainly not planned.
Very nice. Well, one of the things I noticed about your profile is, Jeff, you're a real doer. All right. I mean, you and your wife, Megan, seem to be very hands-on doers, not takers of your environment, and things that stand out about that, the 3 kids. But, dating back to your time at Ohio State, I learned that you were very involved with the student newspaper and even the TV station. So, at a busy, hectic time in college, you were doing, which is impressive. The other thing is the term serial entrepreneur comes to mind when I looked at your background. Either that or you can't hold a job. I'm not quite sure which one it is, but there seemed to be a lot of, like, over 15 years, your breadth of experience, service, and I'll use the word success, is impressive. You're involved in a lot of different sectors, industrial manufacturing, the automotive side, sales and marketing, and law. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you professionally, and then I want to go into some other areas in your background. But why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of who you are as professionally speaking?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I graduated from Ohio State. I then immediately after college went to law school at Syracuse. Graduated from Syracuse in 2008, and so I graduated right into the recession. I at that point in time, I had one child. She was very young, and I knew that we wanted to be closer to family as she grew up, and so kind of made a decision fairly early on that we were going to try to come back to Ohio if it was possible to do that. And so we did. I managed to find work here, and I came back and I practiced law for a number of years in the Cleveland area. And after that, I through a handful of circumstances, I ended up kind of getting sucked into a family business. And I worked in the business for almost a decade. I had a couple of different roles there over the course of the first several years, and I eventually became president of the business. I was president there for 6 years, and I while I was there, I was on a couple of different boards. I was involved in a couple of other businesses, one that has since become fairly sizable, but the industry that I was previously in was one that is very challenging. It's one of those old heavy industrial manufacturing businesses that struggles greatly against foreign and overseas competition. And I knew it wasn't probably what I wanted to do for the rest of my career. And so I set off on my own path a couple of years ago and started my own business in a totally different field. And we've been operating now the process of getting this business up and running was a long one. I started doing this about 4 years ago. We've been operating for 2 years, and it's good. We're growing, and I'm still having plenty of sleepless nights, but things seem to be moving in the right direction.
Jeff, the word growing has different implications to different people, but as I get to know your background professionally, let's talk a little bit about what you're growing there. So, it seems like you were pretty interesting and instrumental with the state, really using your law degree to effectively make legislation in a new area in the country, let alone our state, when it comes to the medical marijuana space. And you were very busy involved with the state of Ohio and getting that to be part of the law here. So you were involved with the legislature on creating that ballot initiative, and now you are on the other side of it. You own a business that does medical marijuana. So let's talk about growing here. How's that going?
It's going well. So just to back up for 1 second, I can't take too much credit for the program that we have now. It was a huge number of people working over many, many years that ultimately got us to where we are and having a medical cannabis program in Ohio. But my interest in it went back really to 2010. As I was sort of transitioning out of the practice of law, I had a handful of nonprofit clients that didn't really need a ton of work, and they didn't want to go and find another attorney. And I really enjoyed a lot of the work that I did with them. And so I kept a couple of clients, and through them just got introduced to Ohio's chapter of NORML, which is the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. And everyone was talking about trying to get a medical program in Ohio, but nobody was really doing anything at that time. Again, this is back in 2010. And so I kind of gave him a kick in the rear end and said, if somebody's going to do this, you really should think hard about trying to get the ball rolling, because there's not a group that's better situated than you guys. NORML is a national organization with chapters in every state. And they said, yeah, you're probably right. So we put together what's called a ballot issue committee. And if you look me up, I was the primary organizer of that thing way back in 2010. We got our language approved by then Attorney General Mike DeWine. But ballot issues, as a lot of people I'm sure can appreciate, are very expensive to push forward on the state level. And it became obvious to me that NORML it's a great group, very grassroots, but they weren't going to be able to raise the money that was necessary in order to take the thing through the finish line. And so we kind of graciously parted ways. But in that process, I met a ton of patients, people that had really dramatically debilitating conditions across a wide spectrum of different issues. And I met people that were not just in Ohio, but in a lot of different states. And so as I got to know patients and I got to know the different markets, I saw some things that were happening out in Western states like Colorado, California, and elsewhere that told me that it was an industry that was likely to continue to grow at a pretty rapid clip. And so I kind of put it in the back of my head that when we finally did get a program in Ohio, that I would do what I could to put together a group and get involved in it. And so we were fortunate enough to get one of a very limited number of licenses that was first issued in Ohio. As I mentioned earlier, we've been up and running for 2 years, and we're cultivator only. So all we do in Ohio is grow the plants. But we're expanding in Michigan right now, and in Michigan we'll do everything. We'll be vertically integrated. So we'll do everything from cultivation to processing and manufacturing to retail.
Well, Jeff, I'm excited to have you be a member of our chapter here, and you're going to bring a lot of energy, and I think the chapter will certainly be a better chapter. It's a great chapter now, but to bring in a young guy like you that's a doer, I'm impressed by your work with the volunteer attorney of the Northeast Ohio Legal Aid. Your wife will be the president of PTO, I understand, coming up here. So not only did you join Hudson 5 years ago, but you two seem very actively involved in making Hudson the community we love to call home. So welcome to Rotary.
Well, that is greatly appreciated. I am very humbled to be joining the group. So thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to a 30-year commitment. Is that what we signed up for? I think. Okay, at this point, we're going to see if Melanie Collins can please unmute and give us a very brief update of what's going on with the American Red Cross. My understanding is that your needs are great right now, Melanie.
Yes, thank you, Marilyn. I was going to share my screen to share a couple slides, if that is doable.
Let's run.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for having me. I'll be very short and brief, but I just wanted to share some of our volunteer opportunities that we have within our Northern Ohio region. So again, my name is Melanie Collins. I'm the Senior Volunteer Recruitment Specialist for our Red Cross within the Northern Ohio region. So not to read this verbatim, but obviously we're going to touch on the volunteer side of things. Obviously blood donations is also a huge piece of what we do. So we won't cover that today, but hosting blood drives, donating blood, is always appreciated as well. So just to go into kind of how we bucket what we do. These are our 5 lines of service or lines of business. I won't touch on all of these today, but I'll kind of just highlight some of our core needs that we have in some of these areas. So disaster, blood, training services, international, and then our services to the armed forces. So a few volunteer opportunities that we have under what we call our SAF or services to the armed forces. So the first is what we call our Hero Care Family Network caseworker. So essentially that is a volunteer that helps supports mostly military members during kind of their deployment process and also supportive of their families with whatever needs that they may have, whether it's financial assistance, emergency communication, or other things where we bring in community partnerships. And then we also have a volunteer role that does require a mental health license, but we do provide workshops around trauma management, stress management, etc., to military veterans and their families. A big piece of what we do is obviously the blood services side of things. So we have 2 main roles where we're looking for folks right now. The first is called our donor ambassador. So if you have donated blood, that person that greets you, checks you in, those are all volunteers. So they kind of provide that the customer service side of the blood drives. So we have 1 or more of those volunteers at all of our blood drives, and we have about 5,000 every year within our region. So that is a huge need right now. And then the second is our transportation specialist. So that could be twofold. It could be either picking up blood components from blood drives and or doing hospital deliveries. So we have starting locations in Cuyahoga, Summit, Mahoning, and Lucas counties because these volunteers drive Red Cross vehicles. So could be driving anywhere within our region, but those are the starting points. So again, could be transporting blood products and or doing hospital deliveries once the blood is processed and ready to go. And then just a few opportunities under a disaster side of things. The one that we need the most of right now is what we call our disaster action team member. So those are the volunteers that respond immediately to a disaster. So pre-COVID, it would be in person. Right now, it's gone like 95% virtual. So they provide that immediate assessment. If financial assistance is needed, we give that directly to the individual or family right away. So that's a huge need that we have right now. And again, that's mostly gone virtual due to COVID. So that is a great need. And then once that initial assessment is done, it is handed over to recovery volunteers. So they do kind of that long-term roadmap of what the individual or family might need. So 2 things that we provide, for example, are the next 2 roles. So health services. So those are professional medical individuals, nurses, doctors, etc. Let's say if medication was lost in a home fire, we can provide that assistance. And then we also have that mental health support as well. Again, licensed mental health professionals that are volunteering with us. I think a home fire can be, traumatic in itself. But we get those notifications that a death has occurred or whatever it may be, so we can provide that internal support to provide the mental health side of things. So I know I kind of flew through that. There's a lot more information if you go to redcross.org/volunteer to kind of find out more information about those opportunities in addition to others that we have available right now. Next step would be for any interested individuals to fill a volunteer application. And again, I am always available. This is my contact information if folks want to learn more about our opportunities, have questions, or whatever it may be. I am happy to chat more in detail. So thank you for the opportunity just to share a little bit. And I can take any questions. I know we're tight on time too. So if folks just want to contact me directly with any questions, we can do that as well.
Well, you have taken this organization way beyond simply providing blood products for hospitals in need. Oh my gosh. When I look at that whole list of things, I was not aware of your connection to the military. Thank you very much, Melanie, for providing a service for these very, crucial people. And I really appreciate your time this morning to share this with us.
Thanks,
So,
Marilyn. I appreciate it.
sure. Oh, this has been wonderful. And like she's asked, James has got her information up on the chat screen. Take a note, some time to note it down if you have an interest. And we're now going to ask Seema to please unmute. And I'm going to give a very, very brief introduction. Seema Rao is a great friend of Rotary and the Chief Experience Officer with the Akron Art Museum. With nearly 20 years of museum experience, Ms. Rao has extensive experience in interpretation and programming, everything from leading content development for all audiences. She has also done content development for digital projects, including an innovative Gallery One studio play and Asian Odyssey. I'm very interested in hearing what she has going on right now with the Akron Art Museum. Seema, welcome, and tell us more about what you're doing down there.
Yes, thank you. I do have a PowerPoint, but first I was just going to start here with the big screen. I heard you guys talking about Hudson School, so I'm going to put in my plug. My husband's cousin is a second grade teacher at Hudson School. So whatever's happening, we're very pro Hudson Schools at our house. She's a wonderful human being. So there's that. And I did, Marilyn mentioned, I also, like Jeff, have a very, very long history of Rotary in my family. My grandfather was a Rotarian. My grandmother was, and I have to say this meeting was run much better than the meetings I remember my grandmother running when I was a little girl. She was sort of a spacey person, and my cousin is a Rotarian. My uncle, my aunts, everybody. My uncle just finished his term as the Rotarian General of District 3181, and he went to the big Rotary meeting, which is sort of astonishing. It was last February in San Diego, which I just think it's sort of so funny. I was looking at the pictures the other day because it came up on his Facebook page to see all these Rotarians together hugging and being in the same room. So I think it was Ronald or somebody said before the meeting started how different the world is. And the world is very, very different. But one thing that is the same is that the Akron Art Museum is open. We just reopened on February 18th, and we have lots of very strict rules. In the interim of closing, we upgraded all of our HVAC. We like to say that we are the safest place in Akron because we have surgical grade HVAC, but no surgeries. So it's very, very safe. So I hope you come and visit. I am often there. We just launched a big digital project actually that you can pick up when you come to the Akron Art Museum, or you could have gotten over Christmas. We gave it to many communities as a Christmas present or Hanukkah present or New Year's Eve present. You can call it any of those things. At actually Hudson Heinens, we partnered with Hudson Heinens as well as Mustard Seed and many other regional stores. We gave out a poster, and you'll have to go to our website to see it. I'm a little bit nervous to switch screens to that and then try to switch back to talking. So you can look it up. It's called Interplay, and we commissioned an artist to make an AR digital artwork. So if you come to the museum, you can pick up a poster, and the poster, when you put it up to a screen, plays, and I'm going to show you a little video, hopefully. It actually will do stuff. And here I have a little video I can show you, and I'm not going to actually show. You can go to my social media and see it, but there is my daughter holding up her phone to my poster and playing with the art. And so you can go this Saturday and get your poster and see some of our art. So I'll show you what you're going to see in a second, but I will give you this caveat. We have been selling out, which I admit I am fairly new to Akron. I'm Cleveland born, and I worked at the Cleveland Museum of Art for 20 years, and we often sold out things. But Akron, we're growing our audiences, and so for us, selling out is a little bit surprising, but we're very excited. So you need to get free ticket. It is completely free right now because of COVID. It's a gift to the community, our fees, but that you need to get them. Even today, we were trying to figure out, we still have, as the governor keeps changing his rules, we're able to like kind of move up our attendance, but we do sell out. So make sure you get your free tickets. And I'll show you what you're gonna see. So now I'm gonna share my screen. And even though, as we were talking about earlier, I've spent a year on Zoom, I still don't always trust it. So somebody show me with a thumbs up that you can see this.
You're good.
Great, yay. So this is one of the first things you'll see. We have a great show right now, 2 shows. They're paired shows called Totally Rad and Totally Radical, Art of the 80s. And you can go to our website or any of our social media. We are on all the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And so you can see even more images of the things that are in the show. I love the show. It actually came up because of COVID. My assistant curator, collection manager, and I were standing in storage. And one of the things that's happened, and I mean, I think many of you who are in business probably understand this, we've had, just like businesses had supply chain problems, we had supply chain problems. When museums organize shows, you often bring works of art from other cities. For a long time this year, Ohio was blacklisted for particularly things coming from Illinois, so Chicago, and New York City. So, and then California, it was just a mess. So we couldn't get art to here. And you might imagine that the cost of shipping art and then canceling a shipment of art is quite a lot. So to save money, we instead decided we would do, and save mostly actually headaches for my team, we would do an internal show. So we looked around storage and we were thinking, and this would have been, usually exhibitions take about 5 years to plan. And we had to cancel 3 shows that had been on the calendar for 3 years. The shows were planned 5 years ago when we booked them about 3 years ago. So we had to figure out what to do. We were sort of standing there like, and my team and I were looking, and one of the things that we thought was sort of interesting is that art allows you to think a little bit differently about what your life is like by looking at how life might have been in the past. And that is a really important part of art. Art is in some ways, about relevancy and also making you reflect on what's happening in your life. And so we decided to do a show about the 80s because there's a lot of resonance between the 80s and now. We were planning this show before the election, but certainly it was about, I don't know, July, August. Certainly it was all over, being in what sometimes is a swing state. It was in our news and it was everywhere here. And we thought, and plus it was really at the time when museums were having a lot of pushback from people. That's certainly continuing. And there was a lot of other things like Black Lives Matter that were happening. And we thought, the 80s is a great way for people to reflect on what's happening now. So this work is one of 3 that are in the exhibition by the Guerrilla Girls. And the Guerrilla Girls are a wonderful group of people, I think, because you don't have a lot of situations anymore where you don't know the backstory. And for the Guerrilla Girls, we don't know. It is a secret collective of artists who dress up, and I have met Guerrilla Girls before, and you can see the mask, and you can see the gorilla mask, the creature gorilla mask. The Guerrilla Girls are a group of famous artists, and they change. They've been happening since the 80s, and they're still Guerrilla Girls, and actually we're hoping that they will do a digital talk for us later this summer. So just sign up for our newsletter on our website, and then it'll come to your email. We'll tell you when they're coming to speak, or coming digitally, I should say. And what they were really interested in was the fact that women have a very hard time in the art world. So these are people who made it, who are trying to help other women. And so this is probably their most famous artwork that I'm showing you. And it made a huge splash because the guerrilla part of their Guerrilla Girls is that they put these posters up outside of the Met. And so they became part of the Met, and they're part of the Met, they're part of MoMA, by showing the Met what they had done. And their point is a really important one. And actually, we just did a TikTok about women artists. International Women's Day was yesterday, I think, about this, that really it is true that the Met and the systems of art history were built by men. And it was very hard for women to get into any museum. And there's a long history of it. And it was a great show that got canceled at the Prado a year ago, that was about female artists, including one of the best known, Sofonisba Anguissola, was a Renaissance artist, and she only got into museums very recently. She was collected quite widely. She was known as sort of an oddity in the art world in the Renaissance, and that's why people collected her. But she, like, her first one-person show was, 300 years after she died. So they were bringing that to people's attention, and they did it, and they made a big splash, and they continue to use their platform and this sort of methodology of secretly using masks. They still do stuff because really iniquity exists in the art world. So I don't know if it's better. I usually, when I give Zoom talks, go through all of them and then ask for questions, but I feel like we're a fairly small group. So if anybody had any questions about Gorilla Girls, maybe you could chime in, or else I'm going to move to the next one.
Seema, could you possibly make your slides full screen?
My computer always freezes when I do that, which is why I didn't do it, but I can try. And then if it doesn't work, we'll go back to it. How about that?
Let's try that.
Okay. Now I'm going to switch slides. Do you see a different image?
We do.
Yes. Yay. Good. Maybe it's the early morning. Okay.
We're lucky.
So
Good day.
it is. It is lucky.
And now we can't hear you.
I was giving a talk for 600 people once, and it froze, and then we could not restart it. And so I just had to describe my slides. It's burned me ever since. So this work is by Robert Rauschenberg. Robert Rauschenberg did these works in the 80s, and he was responding to the Cold War. And I actually showed this exhibition. I had chosen these works for the exhibition. I didn't curate it, but I did it because I'm mostly administrator, and but these works were already framed and they hadn't been on view, and I wanted people to see them, so I asked the curator to put them in, and they worked. Robert Rauschenberg, and this is, if you have younger people in your life, I would encourage you to bring them for this, because I brought my teenage daughters. You might notice I'm hiding out in my room giving this talk, which is a first for me in my whole career. My teenage daughters are somewhere around today, but they had never heard of the Cold War, and these works are about the Cold War. Robert Rauschenberg, and it was really a nice thing to talk about with my kids. He spent a long time, like I remember, hearing about the Cold War when I was very young, like on 60 Minutes, my mom would be watching something, and it was the sort of the anxiety of it. He was reading all the news and whatever, and this is a response to it. He had gone to the Soviet Union, and these are supposed to be very positive. So it's his response to the sort of the fear culture of the Cold War. And there are a series of 5 large photograph viewers. And photograph viewers are a really interesting process. It's where you take a photograph, make a plate, and make a print. I would invite you to join our TikTok and our Instagram, because we got a photograph viewer artist who I actually think lives in Twinsburg, but I can't remember. His name is Bob Herbst. He's one of the best photograph viewer artists in the state, and he's made a special how-to video so you can see how these are made, because I assure you, no matter what words I use to describe it, seeing Bob Herbst's video will be much better. I would have shown it to you today, but my video tech guy is still editing. So you'll have to wait on that. But basically, these are enormous photographs that are printed. It's almost, and what's interesting is he was influenced by by newspapers, and this sort of takes the similar process to newspapers. These are huge. They are, you can see the scale, 88 inches by 53 inches, and there's 5 of them. And they're really wonderfully beautiful. And I think that there's something about him that he was saying in the 80s, that you're really looking at difficult times and finding beauty in them. And I think my next one is exactly the same. Oh, wait. Did it advance?
No.
See, and that's what happens to me every time. I'm gonna have to stop sharing for a second, and then I'm gonna reshare. I'm gonna take it out of that view, and I am sorry that it's not gonna be big, but I would rather show you things than describe words, visual art.
Well, we're all about what works. Let's
exactly. So here we go. I'm gonna go to this one. There we go. Hooray. Can you see this?
Yes, absolutely.
So, all right. So Robert Rauschenberg was really about taking something stressful and making it beautiful and making sort of a statement of it. And Robert Glenn Ketchum is similar in that he did that. We have some wonderful works by Robert Glenn Ketchum, a huge collection of them. And he famously photographed our Cuyahoga Valley National Park. But Robert Glenn Ketchum was his work was to make these really beautiful, they're really large for a photograph, 30 by 40 inch photographs. But this is beautiful, right? I think most of us would say this is something that's really compelling. It's pretty. But underlying it, it was a real political was a really political statement, and we thought that would be very good for a time when we're also talking about pipelines. Robert Gunn Ketchum was what he was really interested in, and he's still with us, so I should use the present tense, and he's still actively photographing. But he wanted to remind us that federal lands should be kept. And, you know, his political movement is, he was very interested in federal lands in Alaska, for example, is that they should be kept untouched. And so these photographs are nature without any humans, and that's his culture. That's what he's doing in his movement, in his artistic movement. But these are unspoiled nature scenes. And so he's taking something that's very beautiful, and then when you read about him, or if you look at, you know, the label in this case, you'll see that his point is actually very political. So he even takes something that seems apolitical and makes it very political. So those are three works that are in the one exhibition, Totally Radical. The other show is about another part of the 80s, which is totally rad. And hopefully somebody from the 80s remembers those are both commonly used slang terms in the 80s. This show is about the other part of the 80s, and so the team that did this show, some of us, we had a joke in our planning. There was a couple of us who remembered the 80s, and there was a number of us who were just born in the 80s. And so for all of us, though, we remembered the bright colors of the 80s. And so this show is just about the excess of the 80s. And we kept making dynasty jokes. I was like, my mom used to watch, and we made a lot of jokes about the things that we remember. For me, it was Nickelodeon. But, you know, we sort of thought about all the bright colors. So this show is just a visual sort of panoply of joy, I think. And this is my favorite work in that show. There's a number of other ones, but I wanted to show you a couple of my favorites. So this is by Nancy Graves, and she was an artist who she was successful, but she really fought against a lot of a public perception, because she worked in, and there's a sculpture that's in the show as well that you'll have to come to see. She did everything. She did sculptures, she did paintings, she did prints. Mostly she was known as a sculptor, but I think her prints are quite wonderful. And this is a silk screen. So that means that she takes a screen and she pushes through, and then she uses multiple silk screens. We have a regional artist named Joe Shorgel, who has a video, which also is yet to be edited, but soon, and you can see it on our Instagram and on our TikTok. But what basically means is every color you see is a different screen. And she had to print all of them over and over and over. And what you need to do is key it. That means that you need to make sure the paper is lined up so the colors print where you want them. And this sort of looks, I mean, it's called vertigo. And I always think that this sort of just looks like movement, you know, if something was blurred, but actually she was looking at maps of the sea and the sea ground. And so it's actually influenced by something real, but then abstracted into something that anybody could bring whatever they chose to. Another artist who is working in printmaking, but this is a very different kind of printmaking, is Judy Fath. Judy Fath is also still with us. She is from London, but she lives in upstate New York. She's a very charming person. We've been corresponding with her over the course of the show. And usually if I had more time, I would ask you guys to kind of guess how this was made, but I'm gonna tell you the answer. This is called a puzzle print, and it's a woodblock. So this is a huge woodblock. You can look at the scale, it's 57 by 69. And what she did was each little part, and I wish I could like be in a gallery and point it out to you, but if you look at, say, the black part, and you can see the edge of the black part, that black part is a piece, it's like a puzzle. She cut that block and then inked it black and then put it down in this grid that she had made. Then she did the same thing with the yellow part. And so it's a separate block, and then she slid it in so that the black block was in between. So it's almost like a puzzle. And I'm sorry that my hands are kind of tiny, but you can see. So this is the black block, this is the yellow block. And they fit together, and then she was able to make this print. It's different than the Nancy Graves, where she had multiple screens. Here she has a single large thing that she's printing, but it's actually multiple blocks laid down next to each other. We explained this just recently. We have an explainer. I know I'm telling you, I just love social media apparently, but digital is my job. So there you go. You can think of this as sort of like Legos. If you inked a Lego, and then you could pick up a Lego and then ink it again. We just did this explainer for how Judy Fath did this on our last week. I don't know if you can see my little video. I didn't want to embed it because I'm so frightened that I would lose you in the short time. So imagine each of those, but instead of me inking it all black, if she did the eyes blue, for example. And what's nice about this, and why you do a puzzle block, is that you can change it. And you can see I changed mine by making his mouth move. And so that's why she did it. So for example, this is a series. And so she could put a different thing in the puzzle. So for example, she could change the shape of the fruit. She could put a different puzzle block in there. And that's why artists do puzzle blocks. It's important. You don't need to do a puzzle block if you're doing a small print. I mean, my little thing, I didn't need to do a puzzle block. I just wanted to explain it to people. But if you're doing a huge print like this, you would have to cut it again all the way. And that's why you do a puzzle block. Finally, I put in this Larry Zox. Oh, you know what? I can tell my time is running out. We have a couple of Larry Zox. I love Larry Zox because this is all about color. I don't need to tell you anything. There's no inherent meaning. It is just the surface. It's that these colors look good together. And there is something really important about that art sometimes doesn't have to mean anything. There's nothing to get. These colors look good together. And I do have to say these colors do look good together. It's in a pair and you can see another Larry Zox and you can even pick which one you like. And I can see my time is running out. So I'm going to skip past Peter.
You've got another 10 minutes.
Yeah, but I have a whole nother show to talk about.
Oh,
so I'm going to skip Peter Dean. You can come and look at it. Also what we have happening is, and hopefully you can see this, and I'll show you a couple of slides that show a couple of close-ups for this. Another big thing I want to announce is that we haven't yet announced it, so this is a surprise. Feel free to tell people, but the press release hasn't come out yet. We decided that because things are getting better here and we can be open, that we're going to open a gallery that had been closed for the whole year. And it's our main exhibition gallery. It's called Arnstein, and we're taking out some of our favorites from storage. And the show is called Reconsidered, and we're going to put them out. And what we're going to do is ask you all, the whole world, to help us do better. One thing museums don't do very well is help our visitors feel comfortable and answer the questions they ask. Curators historically write labels about what they want to tell you. And there's been a huge movement in museums, and that's what interpretation means. It means that it's not a great word, but it means basically we're doing a better job of telling you what you want to know and helping you in the galleries feel comfortable. So what we're going to do all summer long is get people to ask us questions on any platform they want. So they could do it on social, they could do it in the galleries, they could just, call us. We'll take it anyway. And we will improve the text all summer long. And so here are a couple of and we're actually doing 2 rotations because we have so many wonderful things we want to share. So this is the first rotation, and this one is really about the ways that artists use geometry to express themselves. And one of the ones that I would like to bring out is this one. So what do you see when you see this? What's different about these works and what's similar? And now I've been talking all this time. I'd love to hear from you guys.
Well, one looks almost 3-dimensional, the first one, with
this one. Yeah, it looks 3D, even though this one is actually flat and this one is more 3D. This looks very dimensional. I agree.
Very similar colors. I mean, maybe identical even. Can't tell.
Yeah, the colors. And I think it's interesting. One thing I was noting is we were talking because I'm curating this show. I have seen everything in storage, everything, because I wanted to create the best show for people. You don't see this particular purple very often in collections. Purple is just not, we don't have that much purple. But these both have this purple.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
What else?
Both seem to have a lot of geometrics.
Yeah, they both have a lot of geometry, and you can particularly see in real life. And when you come this summer to see it, you will see that particularly here, you can see all of these rectangles, actually. Even though it's very fluid, it's actually very rectilinear.
Well, and then the one on the left is very sharp lines, sharp angles.
Yes.
The one on the right is more ragged. I don't know how.
Exactly. It feels like almost wild. This is so constrained, and this is so, in some ways, fluid, even though it has all those rectangles. So we're putting this out because I love these, and those are all true. It's the same artist, and you can tell that with the colors. And I was going to give you, so you can see the name. It's Al. A lot of people call him Al, but Alvin Loving. They're both called Untitled, and he's a well-known artist. I think most people know him for the stuff that's on the right. these sort of very fluid things. But I wanted to bring this out because clearly he's dealing with both. And he really did think about things like geometry and constraint and, you know, and the lack of restrictions and plays with those. He's sometimes called a maximalist because this one is a lot. But I think that this one too, and it's nice to see, one thing that we don't often have is the same artist work at different ways that they do it. We often just show one thing an artist does. So I wanted to bring these out. And then there's a couple more things I'm going to try to flip through because I want to show you the second rotation. I'm very excited about the second rotation. So the first rotation I said was geometry and geometric expression. The second one is, I'm thinking of it as exuberance. And it's sort of the ways that humans might tell a story that is hard to read, but interesting. So I'm going to flip through these and then I have some close-ups on some of the work. So here are some of the works that you'll see in the show. And I'm going to start with this one. So Rick Hollendonner is an American artist. There's a lot of interesting works in our collection that we might call regionalism. And regionalism, I would love some art historian to come up with a much better, nicer term about it. Regionalism is what you would call Grant Wood. Grant Wood is a regionalist, and what the style is that in the 20th century, like from the 20s, to the 50s, sort of, a lot of artists were working in their region and not being connected to New York and telling the story of their region. So rather than doing, Edward Hopper is another regionalist. Rather than doing something that you would send to New York to show sort of a style that's beyond your region, you instead wanted to do art of your region, and you wanted to keep it. And actually, we have a lot of wonderful artists of that school. Novotny, who taught at Kent, William Summer, who was from Cleveland but had a place at near Boston Mills, a farm near Boston Mills that he depicted very often. Clarence Holbrook Carter. There's lots of wonderful regionalists, many of which are shown in our McDowell galleries. But I love this one. It's a little bit later than what we classically call regionalism. And this isn't really about a region, but a moment. And I like this because I think it's incredibly expressive. I don't know if anybody, it's been a while since I was in school, but when I remember trying to change in the locker room and running to meet something. There's a lot of story you might tell. There's the figures that are in the far background that you might see. There is some, I feel like this is something that with teenage daughters, I completely understand. Somebody has thrown a shirt on top of the lockers. I'm pretty sure this is basically where my daughter's, field hockey uniform must have gone. It's probably still in the school locker room. There's a lot that you can tell. There's a lot of story you can tell. And that's what we're sort of focusing on in this second one. The thing about it is, and I think the thing that's really important in collections is that people feel like when there's a human in an artwork, you can tell a story. And what we're hoping to do is that people also tell stories about things like this. This is actually, this wasn't an artist it's not an artist that's widely known. This is something I think that makes Akron great. We collect great works even if the artist isn't widely known sometimes. And so we have some surprises in our collection. And this is an artist who isn't sort of a national figure, but this is actually, and I'm sorry to say the photograph, we're doing a big digital photography project right now, so we'll have a better photograph soon. When you look at this artwork in real life, it's quite lovely. It is so perfectly painted. And if anybody has tried any kind of studio, you know that to get these perfect lines, and I'm sure tape was involved, but still, the perfection of the strokes and the surface is quite amazing. And so then once you start looking at it, you might be able to create a story. And in this one, I actually think it reminds me of when you see people swimming in lanes, if you're looking over a pool, I think of that. I think a lot of movement might be happening. I was kind of quizzing people at work the other day, and somebody was saying, this feels like people are dancing. They're all the arms that you see people dancing. So what we're hoping to do is invite people in the second installation to start telling their stories about these works and what they see in it, inviting people, even in abstract works, to try to tell a more concrete story. So I have 5 minutes. Thank you for letting me go through all of these things. So some of these are in view. Totally Rad and Totally Radical is already open, but it'll be open throughout the summer. And this other one will be opening soon. In about a month, you can look at our website. We're sort of working out the schedule, and then because it's a surprise show, but then it'll be available all summer. So we have lots to see. In a couple more minutes, I don't know if anybody has questions. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you all. I know. Thank you for letting me this morning just fly through so much information.
Great.
Oh, thanks.
Wow. No, it is awesome. It's wonderful.
Do we have any questions?
I just have a question. So I've enjoyed the museum in the past.
James.
Is there a particular genre or area that is a specialty for the Akron Art Museum?
It is, but you wouldn't know it by visiting. We have a really nationally known photography collection. So we are I'm sort of glossed over it, but it's true. We're working on a huge digital photography initiative. I came from digital, so that's why partly we're doing it, and partly why I was hired, frankly. You will see on our website quite a lot more photography being shown. Our photography, one of the challenges there's 2 challenges with photography. One, black and white photography and any traditional photography, it can be degraded by light, and 2, by conditions, by humidity. And so we have to rest any photograph that comes out, you rest for 5 years. So for example, we have the very famous Ansel Adams. It's the moon rising over, and it's taken in the Southwest, and it just came up, and now it won't be on view for 5 years. It just closed a year ago, actually. So I guess you have 4 years before it comes up. So photography is probably our greatest strength. But what we also did was, and it is a very interesting thing, because when I work in the field, I find it fascinating that our scale of institution and we're sort of we're called a regional museum, not a national. In the museum field, there's the national museums, and we're a regional museum. However, our collections are regional. So we loan a huge number of artworks. There's a Duveneck show. Frank Duveneck's probably one of the most famous artists from Ohio. He's from Cincinnati. He taught at the art school in Cincinnati. Our Duveneck is one of the best, and it's gone there to the show. Our Chase is one of the best, and that's is in the Chrysler in North Carolina right now. So we do actually have strengths throughout, but the photography is across the board very good.
The museum also anchors downtown.
It hopefully does. That's what we like to do. Yes, and actually we're going to start again. We do something called, we're very close with our downtown Akron partnership. And so we're excited because starting this Friday, I can't believe it's already the 2nd Friday of March. We have late nights, and we call them late nights, date nights, friend nights, family nights. So any group you want to be with, you can come late. We're open till 8 on Friday, the 2nd Friday of every month. And so you can come, and then right afterwards, Crave is open. We're encouraging people to go anywhere downtown. And then on Saturdays, we partner with the Summit Art Space. And so we have opened the same hours, and Summit Art Space is right behind us. And their show is really great. Actually, they have an exhibition in partnership with us of the artist who made the poster. So you can come on Saturday, pick up your poster, see our collection, and then go over there to see the artist's other installation. So, and I think, we have a few other initiatives. One thing that we're doing is we're about to run a funny game on our social media in partnership with Stan Hewitt and the Civic. So we are really excited to be downtown. It's a rare thing for a museum to actually be in a downtown place. It's very different than something like the Cleveland Museum of Art.
I'm curious, how many of us have not been to the Met?
Oh, I didn't want to ask.
I have never been. Anybody else?
Come visit me. I'm actually often there. I did say at the beginning, most of our staff who is office staff doesn't, we've asked them to stay home so that our cleaning staff can focus on visitors. But I do often go there. So hopefully you all come and visit, and you can have, Marilyn has my email. You're welcome to email me.
Well, this has been absolutely wonderful. And in a very short period of time, you have shared a lot.
I know, I'm sorry. I got too ambitious.
Hey, how long have you actually been there?
Not 2 years, like 18 months. Yeah, it's been a exciting 18 months. Yeah.
See that, and it's wonderful to have you here. Okay, it's really wonderful to have you there and share the enthusiasm that you bring to this whole venture. So again, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Next week, we'll be hosting Chris Myers and Allie Miller from the Cleveland Playhouse Square. I understand there's a huge announcement coming on April 7th, and so maybe we'll get a sneak preview. What do you think? Now, this day in history, I'm only going to close with one, and that's because it's really fairly important. In 1849, Abraham Lincoln applies for a patent, and he is the only president who has to date applied for a patent for a device that would lift a boat over shoals and obstructions. So we're learning more and more about this famous and very diverse president. At this time, we're going to close the regular Zoom meeting and we'll all rejoin as soon as I get another cup of coffee. So have a great day, everyone. And please consider joining us for the board meeting.